إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أما بعد. We have paper and pens available for people to write on. We suggest if you hear something beneficial, write it down. We used to call it when we studied taqir al-fawaid. You're going to trap or catch the fa'idah. Catch it. How do you catch it? You put it on a piece of paper. We're also recording it, and it will be available for everyone on social media to benefit, inshallah ta'ala. We're going to continue in our preparation for the Dajjal. What will indicate that the Dajjal is about to come out? Some of the indication that will help us understand that the Dajjal is about to appear. Shuraik narrated that she heard the Prophet ﷺ say that people will flee from the Dajjal in the mountains. Meaning they will flee to the mountains from the Dajjal. Shuraik then asked the Messenger of Allah, saying, O Messenger of Allah, where will the Arabs be on that day? He said, the Arabs will be few. The Arabs will be few. And we are like that right now. The Arabs are few, especially in regards to the rest of the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you compare even the Arabs to like the Indonesians and the Malaysians, even the India and Pakistan, Muslims, the Arabs are becoming fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer in number. So that's the first thing. There will be the Arabs will continue to be small and small in number, decrease in number. Another thing that will let us know that the Dajjal is about to appear is the great battle of Constantinople. Constantinople is present-day Istanbul. There will be another battle for it. Apparently, the Christians will win it, will battle for it and have an influence over it. And they will either conquer it or they will be trying to conquer it. Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiyallahu anhu narrated that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, when Jerusalem flourishes and Yathrib, which is Medina, is in ruins. Now, when Jerusalem flourishes, Yathrib will be in ruins. When Yathrib is in ruins, which is Medina, the great battle will occur. And when the great battle occurs, Constantinople will be conquered. And when Constantinople is conquered, the Dajjal will appear. These are four things. Another thing that will let us know that the Dajjal is about to appear is the conquest. That Nafi' ibn Utbah narrated, we were on the campaign with the Prophet ﷺ, and some people came to him from the west wearing woolen clothes. They met him by a hill and they were standing. And the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was sitting. I said to myself, I should go and stand between them and him. This is Nafi' ibn Utbah. I should stand between them and him because they might try to assassinate him. Then I said to myself that perhaps it is a private conversation between them. So he said, I went anyway and I stood between them and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look at the Sahaba defending the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He then said, and I memorized 4 statements which I can count on my fingers. He said, you will fight in the Arabian Peninsula, which we call Saudi Arabia today, Yemen, Oman, that's Arabian Peninsula. You will fight there. and Allah will enable you to prevail over it. Then you will fight in Persia, which is modern-day Iran, parts of Iraq. You will fight there, and Allah will enable you to prevail over it, which has happened. Then you will fight in Byzantium, which is the Roman Empire, and Allah will enable you to prevail over it. Then you will fight the Dajjal, and Allah will enable you to prevail over him. He will allow you to be victorious over the Dajjal. One of the other signs is that the rain and vegetation will be withheld. Before that emerges of the Dajjal, there will be 3 years of drought, as we mentioned. Abu Imam al-Bahili narrated the Prophet ﷺ said, before the appearance of the Dajjal, there will be 3 difficult years in which people will suffer severe famine, which is lack of food. The first year, Allah will command the sky to withhold 1/3 of its rain and the earth to withhold 1/3 of its produce. The second year, He will order the sky to withhold 2/3 of its rain and order the earth to withhold 2/3 of its produce. In the third year, He will command the sky to withhold all of its rain and the earth to withhold all of its produce, and nothing will grow. And all hooved animals with the cleft in it, like goats and sheep and camels and such, will die, except those of the animals that Allah wills to stay alive. Another sign of the coming of the Dajjal is a lot of tribulations, a lot of chaos. Abdullah ibn Umar narrated, we were sitting with the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, and he mentioned tribulations, and he spoke at length about them. This lets us know that he was diligent ﷺ, in teaching these realities that we're going over today. Until he mentioned fitnat al-ahlas, the tribulation that will be lengthy and intense. Someone said, O Messenger of Allah, what is fitnat al-ahlas? He said, people will flee and will lose their property and their families. Then will come fitnat as-sarra, tribulation caused by luxury and life of ease, which will be caused by a man from among my family, who will claim that he is of me, but he will not be of me, for my friends are the pious. Then the people will unite under a man, like a hip bone over a rib, meaning unstable. Then will come the huge tribulation, which will not leave anyone of this ummah except, it will not leave anyone of this ummah without giving him a slap. So the tribulations that he's talking about that will come will strike everybody. When it is said that it is over, it will be extended. Yani when people think that it's done, that tribulation will be extended. And a man will be a believer in the morning and a disbeliever in the evening. Until the people are split into 2 camps. The camp of the people of faith, in which there will be no hypocrisy, and the camp of hypocrites or hypocrisy, in which there will be no faith. When that happens, then expect the Dajjal to appear in the day, within 1 day or the next day. I mean, these are things that will happen. Can you imagine? A person in the morning is a believer, but in the evening they disbelieve. In fact, unfortunately, we have a lot of that now. Especially with the spread of atheism. And its accessibility and its influence in the media, in the schools. And our children, unfortunately, because we are not training them, we're not developing in them to prepare them for this problem. We don't. We just, we come to the masjid, we pray, we bring them to the masjid, we bring them to Qari Sahib, let them read to the Quran, to the Hafiz or the Imam. Then we send them to school, mostly public school. And you just let them grow. But when we do that, we're setting them up for failure. We have to purposely train them and build them and develop them for the fitness that they will face when we are gone. And that cannot happen by us just sitting around, watching the television, and going to work and coming home and going to sleep. It's not. We have to literally train our children to protect them from atheism, which they've been learning their whole life through the school system. They've been learning atheism. That's what it is. Yeah, it's a separation of God from anything. That's why nothing about God is mentioned in anything in school. That's atheism, which is secularism, which is atheism. Of course, you probably knew that. So they're being taught that. So when they go to college, because we weren't trying to build them and develop them, to prepare them, then I've run into many people, many Muslim youth, who have so many doubts about Islam. And they are closer to either atheism or agnosticism. Atheism is the belief that God doesn't exist, and agnosticism is a belief that God exists, but they don't believe in organized religion. So these are tribulations that we're facing now. And Rasulullah said that it's one of the examples of the tribulations that will happen then. A person will be in the morning a believer, and by the evening they're a disbeliever. La ilaha illallah. He also said that there is an appearance of 30 liars, 30 dajjals. They are minor dajjals. Samura ibn Jundub narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said that the hour, by Allah I swear, the hour will not begin until 30 liars have emerged, the last of whom will be the one-eyed dajjal whose left eye is abraded, which means white or covered. So there will be 30 Dajjalun, 30 small Dajjals who appear and teach these lies and misguide the people until the last of them will be the Dajjal himself. How will the Dajjal emerge? How will he emerge? You remember the story of Tamim al-Dari and the Jassasa, that being that they saw that they could not distinguish his front from his back because he was full of hair? They said about the Dajjal that he was a man of large build. Right? And the conversation occurred between him and them. And he told them that he was the Dajjal and that he would emerge one day because of a single instance of anger. Meaning he will break the chains and emerge. He will become angry at something, and he will break these chains, and he will come out and walk amongst the people. So what is the cause of his appearance? Ibn Umar said, I met Ibn Sayyad. Who remembers something about Ibn Sayyad? Ibn Sayyad.
Jewish boy.
Jewish boy who was a black sorcerer, a magician. Black magic, white magic, all haram, right? Purple magic, also impermissible. There's no such thing, I'm just joking. Black magic, white magic, all haram. He practiced sorcery, however. Ibn Sayyad said that he knew exactly where the Dajjal was born and where he was now at the moment of his life, because he was taught by the shayateen and he was influenced and he communicated with them. He communicated with Satan himself, which is apparent in the hadith when Rasulullah said that Satan has confounded you, and he has been confused by Satan himself. Allah, he knew exactly where he was and so forth. So Ibn Sayyad, definitely, alhamdulillah, the scholars believe that he accepted Islam and he became a good Muslim. His kids also inherited Islam. They became outstanding Muslims. But Ibn Umar said, I met Ibn Sayyad one day on one of the roads of Medina. This is before the matter became clear. And I said something to him that made him angry. He was swollen with anger so much that the way that I was going, sharing with him, became blocked. Meaning I wasn't able to pass through it. Ibn Umar entered upon Hafsa bint Umar, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, who had already heard about the incident. And she said to him, may Allah have mercy on you. What do you want from Ibn Sayyad? What do you want from Ibn Sayyad? Don't you know that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said that he will emerge because of a single instance of anger? So beware of your anger and your expression of it. He will travel rapidly around the world. Rapidly. The Prophet ﷺ was asked about the speed with which the Dajjal will travel, and he said, like a cloud that is pushed by the wind, meaning fast. Jabir even narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said that the Dajjal will emerge when people's religious commitment is low. And they have turned away from knowledge. He will have 40 days during which he will travel about. One day like a year, one day like a month, which is the second day, the third day like a week. And the rest of the days, which will be the 47 days, they will be just like our regular days, 24 hours long. But the first day will be how long? A year. The second day will be how long? A month. The third day will be how long? A week. And the rest of the days will be regular, normal, as we know it today. This hadith, it says he will have a donkey and the distance between its ears will be 40 cubits. It could mean, it could mean an airplane or something other than that, or an actual donkey. For those people who say that this is figurative, there's some scholars who believe that this is figurative and therefore that figurative donkey is actually an airplane. Which is reasonable. Wallahu a'lam. It could be also a donkey with big ears. He will come to the people and he will say, I am your Lord. And Rasulullah said, but your Lord is not one-eyed. Written between his eyes will be the letter Kaf, Fa, Ra. And every believer will read it whether he is able to read or unable to read. He will pass by every source of water except Mecca and Medina, which Allah will forbid him, and the angels will stand at the gates of Mecca and Medina. So where will the Dajjal go? If he can't go into Mecca and Medina, where will he go? Anas bin Malik reported that the Prophet ﷺ said, there is no city except that the Dajjal will enter it, except Mecca and Medina. He will enter what? Every city. Every city. Like Kansas City, Missouri, Topeka, right? Help me out. Overland Park, Olathe, keep counting. He's going to enter every city. The Dajjal will never be permitted to enter Mecca or Medina. Rasulullah ﷺ said, on the roads leading to Medina there are angels. The plague and the Dajjal will never enter it. He also said, the Dajjal will come from the east, heading towards Medina, until he comes and he camps behind the mountain of Uhud, which is outside of Medina. According to another narration, he will climb Uhud and he will look towards the Prophet's masjid, and he will say to his followers who are around him, do you see that white palace? Meaning the Prophet's masjid, sallallahu alayhi. And then he comes behind Uhud. And when he does that, he will be met by angels who will turn his face towards Syria, which is where he will perish. He will be defeated in Syria, which is the Bab Lut. We'll talk about that in a second. And Rasulullah said that's where he will perish. Perish means be destroyed. Got it? That's where he will be destroyed. His life will end. I'm sorry, I have a good ear. It's okay. You're doing a good job. Thank you. According to another narration, Mihjan ibn al-Adra, he said that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ addressed the people and he said, the day of salvation, and what is the day of salvation? The day of salvation, and what is the day of salvation? The day of salvation, and what is the day of salvation? And somebody asked, Ya Rasulullah, what is the day of salvation? People were so interested after he kept saying that. And he said that the Dajjal will come and climb Uhud and look at Medina. Then he will say to his companions, do you see that white palace? That is the mosque or masjid of Ahmed. Who is Ahmed? Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Then he will come to Medina, but on every road leading into it, he will find an angel with his sword out. He will come to sit on the salt marsh of Al-Jurf and pitch his tent there. Then Medina will be shaken with 3 earthquakes, and no hypocrite, whether man or woman, and no evil person, a man or a woman, will be left in Medina. They will all go out to him. That is the day of salvation. Meaning Allah saves the people in Medina, and He doesn't save the evildoers and the hypocrites. They all come out to meet the Dajjal. And the only ones who remain in Medina are the believers. See how beautiful belief is? Iman is a beautiful thing. I think that myself, me, and the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we underestimate Iman. I think we underestimate it. We don't really look at it like, wow, Iman, you know. But we should. Just like we enjoy those cars and those nice houses and that money and those nice chandeliers, and you see something like that, you say, wow, that's awesome. You should say that about Iman, because Iman is even more awesome. May Allah make it easy for us. He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam then said, there will be no part of the earth left that the Dajjal does not enter except for Mecca and Medina. So he will spend his whole time going around. And last he will come to Mecca and Medina, and then he will be turned towards Syria, where that's where he will be finished. On every road leading to them will be angels standing in guard. So he will camp on the salt marsh. Salt marsh is just that. It's a stone that consists mostly of salt. And you can look it up on YouTube. There's a salt marsh place. And the people of the area call this, there's like an encampment or like a little building structure area. People who live there call that the place of the Dajjal. People who live there believe that that's where the Dajjal is going to come. Maybe. And it's amazing. I don't know if it's a coincidence or not. But when you look at that place from the sky, I've seen it from the sky aerial view, it looks like one eyeball. I don't know, people might be, it might be superimposed, but maybe it's true, Wallahu a'lam. So then it says, he will stop at the red hill, at the end of the salt marsh. Medina will be shaken with its people 3 times, and every kafir and hypocrite will come out of it. The salt marsh, of course, is a salty ground which is outside of Medina. After the people come out of that, we'll mention a story that happens in that place. One of the boys of Medina comes out to meet the Dajjal. We'll mention that in a second. And then he will be turned towards Syria, where he will be destroyed. Let me give you examples of the turmoil of the fitna of the Dajjal. So what is up? Like, what's the big deal? Some examples. Hudhayfa ibn Yaman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu narrated, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he will have with him a garden and a fire. But his fire will be a garden, and his garden will be fire. He said, he will have with him water and fire. Another narration. But his fire will be cool and his water will be fire. He also said, I know what the Dajjal will have with him. He will have 2 flowing rivers. One that appears to be water and one that appears to be flaming fire. If anyone sees that, let him go to the river that he thinks is fire. And he's going to test you. He's going to come out and do some movement, right? And it's going to look like he has powers. So you saw all those movies, Mike, you know the superhero movies? Or Magneto picked something up and froze it. You know what I mean? This stuff is going to actually, people are going to see the Dajjal doing that. It's scary. You were probably thinking, oh, that's cool, but man, he's going to pull people from Islam to disbelief. And he's going to help them get to the fire. So it's not really cool. In fact, that river that looks like fire will really look like fire. Really. And he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, go into that one. We're going to mention that hadith here. He said, as for that which the people will think is water, it will be burning fire. And as for that which the people think is a fire, it will be sweet and cool water. Whoever amongst you sees that, then he should plunge into what he thinks is fire, what looks like fire, because it is sweet and cool water. The Dajjal will be able to influence inanimate objects. Objects, he will be able to influence them. That doesn't mean he's sitting here like picking up chairs, for example, from here. I don't think he's doing tricks. But I think that, as Rasulullah mentioned, he's going to be doing all of these things with a purpose, trying to get people to believe that he's God on earth. And Nawas ibn Sam'an radiallahu anhu reported that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that he will come to a people and he will call them, and they will believe in him. Then he will command the sky to rain, and he will command the earth, and it will bring out its produce, its vegetables, and its fruits. Their herds will come back to them in the evening with their humps high as they were ever before, and their udders will be full and their flanks will be stretched. So these animals will be like so full and healthy and milk and everything. He will come to another group of people and he will invite them, and they will reject what he says. So he will leave them and they will be afflicted with drought. So that no water will come to them as a test for them. And all of their crops will thereby die, and their animals will be dying. He will pass by even some ruins, and he will tell the earth, bring forth your treasures. And the treasures from the earth will come out and follow him like a swarm of bees. Could you imagine you go to some earth and you say, come, gold, come out. Diamonds, come out. Rubies, come out. And it just comes out of the ground, and it just follows him wherever he goes. That's deep. And people see that, they're going to be like, he must be God. He must be God. May Allah say this. He will say to a Bedouin person, what do you think? What if I resurrect your father and your mother for you? Will you then witness that I am your Lord? The Bedouin man will say, yes. Then two devils will appear to him in the form of his mother and his father. And these two devils will say to him, my son, follow him. He's your Lord. Could you imagine? This lets you know that shayateen can come in the form of individuals at any moment. Any moment. And Shaitan himself, Iblis, if you read, for example, the stories of the prophets, the book by Ibn Kathir that's been translated, you'll see him appearing to the prophets and appearing to people multiple times. Right? They can shapeshift. Sometimes, for example, they live as crows, or they live as snakes, and so forth. But don't worry, they cannot harm you unless you allow them in. And how do you allow them in? By leaving your prayers, by leaving your fasts, by committing evil deeds. By that, you let them in. And if they want to influence you, they can, because you don't have a protection. But if you protect yourself with dhikr, mentioning Allah, reading the Quran, doing sadaqah, being nice to your parents, being nice to your spouse and your kids, being nice to your neighbors, these good deeds will actually protect you. Believe it. Also, he will call a youthful man, a young man, and he will slice this young man in two. Then the Dajjal will say to the people, look at this slave of mine. I will resurrect him, and he will claim that he has a Lord other than me. Watch this. The Dajjal will then command him to rise alive, and this boy will get up after the Dajjal sliced him in half. And who gives him life? The Dajjal gives him life, or Allah gives him life? Allah gives him life. The Dajjal has no power. The Dajjal, however, he thinks he does. Right? But Allah is just allowing this stuff to happen, because He's testing the people. He's testing the believers to prove that they actually believe, and He's testing the disbelievers and the hypocrites to prove that they actually don't believe. So hopefully we will be in the camp of the believers. May Allah join me with you all in the camp of the believers. So then, he will think that he had been given this boy life, but Allah gave him life, not the Dajjal. So when the two halves of this boy come back together, the Dajjal will say, who is your Lord? And the young man will say, my Lord is Allah, and you are the enemy of Allah. You are the Dajjal. And we're going to talk about this specifically later, this particular story of this young man, brave young man, in a minute. Incorrect. What are some of the incorrect beliefs about the Dajjal? Mughira ibn Shu'bah radiallahu anhu narrated, no one asked the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam about the Dajjal more than I did. I always ask him, and what about the Dajjal this? What about the Dajjal that? So guess what? If you ask me again and again, you're following Mughira ibn Shu'bah, which is good. And if I answer you again and again, then I'm answering you just like Rasulullah answered his Sahaba. So okay, so some people say, brother, yani some kids get obsessed with this particular topic, and some teachers teach it in a way make the kids so afraid that the kids are having nightmares at night. Could you imagine? I've heard this of brothers. One brother said to me one day when I was about to teach a kid, he said, hey man, don't talk about the Dajjal, man. My kid, she was having nightmares when, you know. But it's usually the way the teacher is teaching it, the teacher has to reinforce the student to help them understand that the Dajjal is a weak human being. Weak. He cannot do anything. He just thinks he's doing these things. So there's no need for you to have nightmares about him. And if you do wake up, when you wake up, if you do have a nightmare, say, oh Allah, protect me from Dajjal. And Allah will protect you from Dajjal. Mughira ibn Shu'bah, he said, no one asked Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam about the Dajjal more than me. And I asked about him, and he said, my son, why are you so concerned about him? He will never harm you. Like, what's up? He won't harm you. I said, they are saying that he will have a river of water and a mountain of bread. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, he is too insignificant before Allah for that. Meaning, for him to have a mountain of bread, he is not that important to be given a mountain of bread. So people think, and I used to think too, that the Dajjal comes with a mountain of bread and a mountain of food and tells people, follow me and I'll give you food. I used to think that until these hadith like this straighten that out. So that's one of the incorrect beliefs about the Dajjal, is that he will have a mountain of bread. Who are the followers of the Dajjal?
The Jews.
The Jews. He will be followed, however, by many people. And Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu said that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said 70,000 Jews of Isfahan will follow the Dajjal wearing shawl-like garments. And the rabbis would wear this very decorative shawl, and you know, it usually at the bottom it has these lines going across, straight lines going across it, and it's, you know, clear, or white. Abu Hurairah narrated also that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the Dajjal will camp at Khuz and Kirman. Khuz is called Khuzestan right now. The Kirman is still Kirman, and Isfahan in Iran is still Isfahan. With 70,000 people whose faces will be like hammered shields. This means that their faces will be wide and fleshy. So the description of those individuals that will follow him is as if their faces are like shields. When you make a round shield like this, they will have wide faces. Right now, Isfahan has officially 25 to 30,000 Jews living there. And you can find more about the Jews of Iran by going to a website called IranJewish.com. If you want to know just more about them and understand what's going on over there. The Prophet Muhammad mentioned specifically 70,000 of them will follow him. So why do you think most of the followers of the Dajjal will be the Jews? Why do you think that?
They denied Isa.
My brother said because they denied Isa. Okay, so what did Isa claim that they denied?
Messiah.
That he was a Messiah. Good. So the Jews believe that one of the descendants of David will come and he will be a king, which they call Misyach. In Hebrew, they call it Misyach. In Arabic, is Masih. Messiah. And Jesus said that he was a Messiah. And the Jews disbelieved in that. And they killed someone who looked like him with the intention of killing him. And we'll mention that, inshallah, possibly next week. How the Jews of that time killed that individual who looked like Isa ibn Maryam, who looked like Jesus. In fact, part of the prayer rituals of the Jews is that it includes supplication for this Messiah to come out. And the Talmud that they follow explains some of this, that, you know, basically when this Messiah comes, there will be a bunch of garments of wool and wealth and food, and power will be restored to the Jews, and all of the nations will serve that Messiah and submit to him. In fact, they believe that for every Jew there will be 2,800 servants. and 310 states under his authority. They believe this will happen when their Messiah comes. It's in their Talmud, not in the Torah. Torah is different. Talmud is a secondary book that they believe in, that they take from, that their scholars put together. What about the disbelievers and the hypocrites? Anas ibn Malik narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, no part of the earth will be left except that the Dajjal will enter it and basically conquer it. His influence of that town will prevail, will be uppermost. That means also that there will be some people there that will believe, but his influence in that town will be uppermost, the most influence. Then he will come to Mecca and Medina. All of the roads leading to them will have an angel standing guard on it. And the Dajjal will camp on the salt marsh, and Medina will be shaken with its people in it 3 times, and every disbeliever and hypocrite will come out of it. And that Bedouin individual that we saw and we heard about, it lets us know that sometimes when you're far away from cities and madaris, proper schools, as Bedouins typically live as like nomads, they go following their sheep and their cattle from place to place, and they may not focus a lot on education because they don't have the means to do so. So when ignorance is so strong, then a person can see his 2 parents come back to life, which is actually devils, and just because they say that he's your Lord, they will follow him. So that shows you how dangerous ignorance is. To not know or to be unaware is very dangerous. And I don't think any Muslim, I don't think any human being, or there are some exceptions to that, but most of the human beings in the world today don't have the excuse to be ignorant. Because everything is at the tip of our fingers. We can learn about everything. Except I would exclude those people who are living in, like, isolated islands and they have no electricity and stuff like that. Yeah, they are. I think their ignorance is excused because they don't have a means to get to this information. But the rest of us, we don't have a reason or excuse to not know about this deen. Rasulullah ﷺ said that the Dajjal will camp on the salt marshes, and most of the people who will come out to him from Medina will be women. Most of the people who will come out to him will be women, and a man will go to his relatives, to his mother, his daughter, his sister, and his paternal aunt, and tie them up out of fear that they will go with the Dajjal. So that's to know that most of his followers will be Jews, and most of them, of all of them together, will be women. So we ask that we ask our brothers and our fathers to take a diligent approach to educate yourselves and to make sure that Islamic education is a part of your home so that your wife understands it and we don't have to worry about her being like one of those people who follow the Dajjal because she has knowledge. But we have to invest in it ourselves as leaders of our households, and maybe we can influence them to do it. And sisters, guess what? If the guys don't move, and they're not moving toward knowledge, please, with your time and your ability and your expertise and your intelligence, go ahead and study the deen. Perhaps with that you can influence your husband with a thing or two, and he will be more educated about the deen. But the responsibility is on both of us, men and women. And we said that the Dajjal will stay for 40 days. The first day like a year, the second like a month, the third like a week, and the rest of them like regular days. So how do we stay safe from the Dajjal? Number 1, keep away from him. Imran ibn Hussein narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever hears of the Dajjal, let him go far away from him. I swear by Allah, a man will come to the Dajjal thinking that he's a believer, and then he will follow him because of the confusion that the Dajjal causes. And he will cause this confusion. He will show you some tricks. You think it's a miracle. You follow him. You thought you were a believer just a while ago. Shuraik narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said that people will flee from the Dajjal and go to the mountains. And of course we know that during that time, the Muslims will be ruled by a single ruler who will be nicknamed Al-Mahdi, the guided one. We already established that the guided one is only guided by the Quran and Sunnah, which just so happens to be present with us today. So just as he will be guided, we can be guided today in preparation for that. And of course in preparation for what is more important than that, which is the Day of Judgment itself. The second thing we can do is seek Allah's help. Ask Allah to help you. Abu Umama al-Bahili narrated, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever is tested with his fire, then let him seek the help of Allah. You see the fire and you see the cool water. Your instinct is going to push you towards what? The fire? The cool water. Your instincts. So in order for you to overcome that fear, you have to seek Allah's help and jump into the fire. Because it's not easy to jump into a fire. Can you believe it's going to be fire cracking and popping, and you can imagine molten lava, for example. That's what I'm imagining when you say a river of fire. So you're going to have to seek Allah's help, and I'm going to have to seek Allah's help. Another thing that will help you and protect you from the Dajjal is knowing the names and the attributes of Allah. Because the Dajjal is one-eyed, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't have any defects. Him being one-eyed is a defect. But Allah has no defects. He's perfect. Everything about Him is perfect. His knowledge is perfect. His wisdom is perfect. His power is perfect. His forgiveness is perfect. Even His punishment is perfect. Even His punishment and His anger is perfect. Everything about Allah is perfect. So the more you get to know about Allah, then the Dajjal cannot fool you. He will be fooling many people because they're confused about Allah Himself. They're confused. They're not educated about who Allah is and how He is and what He does and why He does. And why there's nothing like Him. Allah said, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. There's nothing like Him, yet He hears and He sees. And the Dajjal himself is going to be impaired. He cannot see out of one eye. And the other eye will be covered. Barely seeing out of that. But Allah sees. And He is not impaired in His sight ever. What else will help us and protect us from the Dajjal? Reading the first 10 verses of Surah what? Al-Kahf. What's the easiest way to memorize Surah Al-Kahf? Tell me.
Reading it on Friday.
Reading it every Friday. Reading it every Friday. So I memorized Surah Al-Kahf personally before I memorized the Quran. And the reason why is because I was reading it every Friday. And it's like when you read it like that, you don't even try to memorize it. You just, because you keep reading it, it just automatically saves to your brain. And at that time when I memorized it, I didn't understand much of Arabic. But because I kept reading it, it went to my subconscious. And then I realized that I memorized it. So if you read it every Friday, you'll memorize it quickly. Inshallah, about a year or so, you'll memorize it. Abu Darda narrates that whoever memorizes 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf will be protected from the Dajjal. And those are from Alhamdulillah alladhi anzala ala abdihi al-kitaba wa lam yaj'al lahu 'iwaja to إِذْ أَوَى الْفِتْيَةُ إِلَى الْكَهْفِ فَقَالُوا رَبَّنَا آتِنَا مِنْ لَدُنْكَ رَحْمَةً وَهَيِّئْ لَنَا مِنْ أَمْرِنَا رَشَدًا. So from there to there, which means all praise is due to Allah who sent to His servant the book, and He did not make therein, meaning in the book, any crookedness. Oh, we're talking about, Allah said about the book, it's no what? Crookedness in it. La ilaha illallah. Are you kidding me? Allah said it's no what? Crookedness in His book. But where are we going? The opposite direction. For the most part, Muslims don't care much about the Quran. We have different cultures that we have established, like reading it, starting the Bismillah, and then having the Bismillah party, and then at the end you're having, Ameen party. These cultures that we started, mashallah, our kids, they read the Quran. We might read it for a wedding, or read it for a funeral, or what have you. But that's not what the Quran is for. The Quran is for guidance, to guide me and to guide you. Allah says there's no crookedness in this book. Allahu Akbar. From there to إِذْ أَوَى الْفِتْيَةُ إِلَى الْكَهْفِ, when the group of young men went and sought refuge in the cave, and they said, "Oh our Lord, give us from you, grant us from you mercy. Grant us mercy from you, and facilitate or make it easy for us to be guided and upright." That's just the basic meaning of that. So why do you think you read the first 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf to save you from the Dajjal? Why do you think that? Think about it. What the story of the boys, what were the boys running away from? a tyrant king. They were running away from persecution, which means torture. And they were running away from being killed, possibly because of their faith. They ran away. Whose help did they seek? Allah's help. So what did Allah do for them? He saved them and put them to sleep in the cave for how long? 309 years. 309 years. That's 309 years solar and 300 years lunar. Wallahu a'lam. Did they know that was going to happen? Pre-planned? They knew that, we're going to go in this cave and we're going to sleep so long and we won't have to worry about food or anything. Did they know that? No. All they did was say, Allah, save us. That's how beautiful faith is. That's how beautiful it is. Because Allah will work miracles for you. Were they prophets? No. They were just young men. And Allah saved them for 300 plus years. Could you imagine 300 years? And their bodies are flipping, as Allah said, flipping back and forth to keep it from dying on one side. And He kept even the dog alive. And they didn't need food or drink or anything. That means when you drink something when you're thirsty, is it the water quenching your thirst, or is it Allah quenching your thirst by the water? Allah is quenching your thirst. It's not the water. When you eat something and you are hungry before eating, is it Allah satiating your hunger, which means satisfying your hunger, or is it the food satisfying your hunger? Allah is satisfying your hunger. You see? Nothing happens except by the will of Allah. You can't sit down except with Allah's permission. You and I cannot stand up or speak except with Allah's permission. For example, just another example to help us believe in what Allah can do and that everything that happens is by Allah's leave, by His permission, by His power, by His knowledge, by His might. Allah mentioned in the Quran that people on the Day of Judgment, the disbelievers, will be walking on their faces. Walking where? On their faces. The Sahaba asked, Ya Rasulullah, how is that going to happen? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, the one who made them walk on their feet in the earth, in the world, is the same one who will make them walk on their faces on the Day of Judgment. As if to say, what's the big deal? He made them walk on their feet. You only walk on your feet because Allah allowed you to do so. He taught you how to do it. So those people will walk on their faces on the Day of Judgment because they disbelieved in Allah. Simple as that. So everything that happens is by Allah's permission. Let us remember that. Let us believe in that. So Allah saved those boys. So because Allah saved those boys from that tyrant king and let a miracle happen, Allah will save you and I from the Dajjal because we read those 10 verses. Even if you recite Surah Al-Kahf, the whole thing, you'll be protected by the Dajjal. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri narrated that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, whoever recites Surah Al-Kahf as it was revealed and is alive when the Dajjal appears, he will never have, meaning the Dajjal will never have any power over him, and he will not have any way to tempt or confuse that individual. He won't be able to even confuse you. He'll show you all the tricks, you won't care because you read Surah Al-Kahf. See how powerful that is? Allahu Akbar. May Allah awaken us, may He wake us up to these realities and the beauty of His book and the beauty of following Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam's way. Guidance is a wonderful thing. Being guided is a wonderful thing. Another way to protect you from the Dajjal is to go to Mecca and Medina. Why? Because the Dajjal cannot enter it. But make sure if you go to Medina, we have to make sure your iman, you have to make sure your iman is correct. I have to make sure my iman is real. That I'm not being a hypocrite or anything like that. May Allah save us from hypocrisy. No one knows if they're a hypocrite until they meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sahaba were worried about hypocrisy themselves. No, it's not befitting that a believer say, I'm a believer. No, if you're a believer, be a believer and hope that Allah will accept it. Because if your iman and my iman is not checked and not right, when we go to Medina, we'll be running out of it to go meet the Dajjal. Right? May Allah keep us safe. How else can you be protected by the Dajjal? You ask Allah Jalla wa Ala to protect you from the Dajjal at the end of your prayers. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us that at the end of the prayer, You say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min adhab al-qabr, wa min adhab al-nar, wa min fitnat al-mahya wal-mamat, wa min fitnat al-masih al-dajjal. Every prayer, you ask Allah to protect you from the Dajjal. That's how important it is. Which means, oh Allah, I ask your protection from the trials and difficulties of the fire, as well as I ask your protection from the trials and the difficulties of the grave. And I ask your protection from the trials and the difficulties of living and dying. And I ask your protection from the trials and the difficulties of the false Messiah, which is the Dajjal himself. How else can you be protected by Allah Jalla wa Ala? As-Sa'ib ibn Juthama narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, the Dajjal will not emerge until people no longer mention him. What does that mean? The Dajjal will not come out until people don't mention him anymore. What does that mean?
People wouldn't even think he's going to come.
Yani people become ignorant. People don't think he's going to come. Did you know there's a large movement, even in the Arabs and non-Arabs, even Muslims, that the Dajjal is just fake. It's figurative. It's this, it's that. Large movement. They don't think he's even going to come. That's a part of ignorance in him. So people won't mention him. They won't mention him on the pulpit. Alhamdulillah, I'm mentioning him right now, so hopefully he's not going to come anytime soon. But people won't mention him and he will become a thing forgotten. People will forget about it, for the most part. There will be people who know, because the knowledge will remain. Knowledge will always be there for us, alhamdulillah. You just got to seek it. You just got to get it. You just got to learn it. But a lot of people, most of the people will forget. So therefore, in addition to that, what else you can do? Arm yourself with Islamic knowledge. Islamic knowledge is a protection for you. It will help you understand. It will protect you from fitnas, which is trials, and tribulations. It will also protect you and I from desires and doubts. When you see people come to someone to get them off of Islam, they usually talk this doubt, that doubt. They say this doubt. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? They're not coming to them with knowledge. They're coming to you with doubts to get you off of Islam, to get you out of Islam. If you arm yourself with knowledge, none of those doubts will ever affect you. So please, I don't think any of us have any excuse, not myself nor you all, to be ignorant about the deen of Islam. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu narrated the Prophet ﷺ said that the Dajjal will come, but it will be forbidden for him to enter the mountain passes of Medina. And he will go to the salt marshes near Medina. And on that day, a man will come out to him who will be the best of its people and of the best of people. This man will say to him, I bear witness that you are the Dajjal that the Prophet ﷺ spoke of. The Dajjal will say to the people around him, if I kill him and bring him back to life, do you think that you will have any doubts about me? So they will say no. Basically, yeah, kill him and bring him back to life, we won't have any doubts. So he will kill the boy and bring him back to life. Of course, Allah is bringing him back to life, but the Dajjal thinks he is bringing him back to life. In another report, it says that he will strike him with a sword and cut him in half. Then he will call the young man, and the young man will come after being killed with a cheerful face. He will be smiling. And he will say, I swear by Allah, I am more certain now that you're the Dajjal than I was before. I really know that you're the Dajjal. See, that he's armed with knowledge. He has knowledge. He knows that Rasulullah ﷺ told us. He wasn't of those who said, oh, the Dajjal is metaphorical. It doesn't mean anything. Or it means something, but it doesn't mean what you're thinking. No, he knows that the Dajjal is an actual person that will do this actual fitness. So he says, you are the one that Rasulullah ﷺ told us about. You are the Dajjal. In another narration, the Dajjal will emerge and a man from amongst the believers will come towards him. and he will be met, meaning this man comes to the Dajjal and he will be met by some armed bodyguards and supporters of the Dajjal. And they will say to one another, in fact, they will say to him, where are you going? And he will say, I'm going to see this person who has come out. And they will say to him, don't you believe in your Lord or our Lord? They say. And then he will say, there's nothing hidden about your Lord. Basically meaning, and let me go see. If he's your Lord and really the Lord, I'll be able to see that. But this guy has a plan. This guy has what? A plan. He's going to go and challenge the Dajjal. So then he will say, or they will say, kill him. And then they will say to one another, no, didn't your Lord tell you not to kill anyone except with his permission? So they will let him go to the Dajjal. And when the believer sees the Dajjal, he will say, people, wake up. Wake up, I'm adding that. People, this is the Messiah that the Dajjal, or should be the Messiah at Dajjal, Masih al-Dajjal, that Rasulullah told us about. Then the Dajjal will tell them to lie him out like this on the ground. And then he will say, take him and strike him on the head. And he will be beaten. This young man will be beaten severely on his stomach and on his back. Then he will say, do you not believe in me? And the young man will say, you are the false Messiah. Then he will order this man to be cut in half with a saw. And this will be from the middle of his head to between his legs. It's kind of gorish. It's kind of scary. But Rasulullah taught it to us, so we're mentioning it, of course. Then the Dajjal will walk between the two pieces and he will say to him, get up. And he will stand up straight. Then the Dajjal will say to him, do you believe in me? And he will say, it has only made me more certain about you. I'm more certain now than I was before. And the believer will then say, people, he will not do it again to anyone after me. I mean, I'm the last one he's going to do this trick to. He won't be able to do it to anyone else. And he basically won't be able to trick anyone else with this type of trick anymore. Because it won't happen after that. Then the Dajjal will take hold of this young boy to slaughter him. But the area between his neck and his collar will become copper. And he's going to grab him and try to kill him, but it will become copper. He won't be able to touch it. Then he will hold both of his hands and his feet and he will throw him into a fire. And the people will see this young man being thrown into a fire and think he is being thrown into a fire, but he's being thrown into paradise. Because when he dies, where's he going? Straight to Jannah. Straight to Jannah, he's a martyr. He's not going to be asked on the Day of Judgment about what he did and what he said, nothing. Straight express pass ticket to paradise. Because he died in defense of Islam. And he died teaching Islam. And this Dajjal kills him. Rasulullah said he is of the best martyrs on the Day of Judgment. He's of the best ones. Because that's you think it's easy to go stand up to the Dajjal and say and then have them beat you and all of that? That's not easy. This young man is very courageous. This lets us know that cowardice, being a coward, is not a part of Islam at all whatsoever. There's nothing in Islam about being a punk or a coward. Islam teaches us to be courageous, to have dignity, to have honor, to stand up for what's right, to teach people the truth. That's what Islam teaches us. There will also, how else do you protect yourself from the Dajjal? You prepare for war against the Dajjal. Meaning with the believers at the time of the Dajjal, which is the Mahdi and others, you will prepare for war against the Dajjal, to fight him. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrated that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, while they, meaning the Muslims, are preparing to fight and forming their ranks, the Aqama will be called. And then Isa ibn Maryam will come down. Hudhayfa ibn Usayd narrated that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, he will come to Medina, meaning the Dajjal, and defeat those who are outside the city and prevent those who are inside from leaving, meaning the believers. Then he will go to the mountains of Ilya. Ilya at that time was Baytul Maqdis, which is Al-Quds. We call Quds today. In Jerusalem, it used to be called at that time Ilya, at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that was a name given to it by the Romans. where he will besiege it. He will besiege a band of Muslims, meaning he will cut off the supplies to a group of Muslims there. Then they will be going through a hard time because of that. Those who are in charge of them will say, what is keeping you from fighting this tyrant until you meet Allah or Allah grant you victory? Meaning there's only two ways. You fight him, which is the Dajjal, and you granted victory over him, or you die in the path of Allah and you meet Allah. You didn't lose. Of course, it's not that easy, but either way, you didn't lose. So then they will say, they will agree to fight him, meaning this siege that he's doing and keeping them locked into the place, they will agree to fight him. Then, in the morning, Isa ibn Maryam will be with them. So when they are ready to fight, Allah will give them Isa ibn Maryam. That shows you a lot. That you as a believer, and me as a believer, hopefully we are believers, we have to be prepared. We have to be ready for Allah's help. Then Allah will send help. And we have to agree to work together for Allah's help and for His deen. And when we agree to do that and we make this dedicated effort to do so, then Allah sends His help. It's as simple as that. Also, what the Muslim should do if he meets the Dajjal. Rasulullah ﷺ said upon the authority of Abu Umama al-Bahili, between his eyes will be written the word kaf, fa, ra, or kafir, which every believer will read. Whoever among you meets him, then spit in his face and recite to him the verses of Surah Al-Kahf. He humiliated. He's not God. Spit on his face and recite the verses of Surah Al-Kahf. And if he says, he will be given power over one of the sons of Adam, meaning one of the children of Adam, whom he will kill and bring back to life. Meaning he will be able to do these things, as we already described. Abu Qilawa narrated from the companions of the Prophet ﷺ that he said, After you will come, a misguided liar, whose head from behind will appear very curly. It will be very curly. We said he's a white guy with very curly hair. And he will most likely look like a Jewish person, most likely. So then he will say, I'm your Lord. Whoever says to him, you are lying, you are not our Lord. Rather, Allah is our Lord, and in Him we put our trust. To Him we repent, and we seek refuge with Him from you. If you say that, the Dajjal will have no control over you. Meaning he won't be able to take your iman from you. And he will not cause you to be a disbeliever. Here, I'm going to wrap it up with how the Dajjal will pass away. Excuse me. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrated that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, the Dajjal will come from the east, and he will head for Medina until he camps behind Uhud, when the angels will cause him to head towards Syria, and then he will die, meaning there. And of course Syria at that time was called Sham, which included Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and Palestine. Right? And I might be, if I'm missing something, I apologize. So basically that area was Sham. That's where he's going towards, that area, and then he will be killed there. But the one who kills the Dajjal will be Isa ibn Maryam. Majma' ibn Jariyah narrated that the Rasul ﷺ said that the son of Maryam will kill the Dajjal at the gate of Lud, which is a city. It's a city there now. Look it up, L-U-D-D or L-O-D in Palestine. It's there. It's there today. That's where the Dajjal will be killed. Abu Hurairah narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, while they, meaning the Muslims, are preparing to fight and forming their ranks, the Iqamah will be given and Isa ibn Maryam will descend. According to another narration, he, meaning Isa, will descend to the right white minaret in the east of Damascus, wearing two garments lightly perfumed with saffron, placing his hands on the wings of two angels, meaning he will be coming down and riding these two angels, basically. When he lowers his head, it will drip. And when he raises it, the water scattered drops will spread like pearls. They will go in different directions. Every disbeliever who is within the range of the breath of Isa will die, and the breath of Isa will reach as far as his eyes can see. Therefore, anyone within the radius of the distance of his sight who disbelieves in Allah will die, just because he's there. Isn't that cool? Now that's cool. Now that's some superhero, stuff right there. That's Isa ibn Maryam. Allahu Akbar. That makes you feel, you feel like you love him more. Like he is awesome. Alayhi salatu wasalam. The Prophet ﷺ told us that when Isa descends and the Muslims have gotten ready for prayer, and their leader, which is the Mahdi, will go forward to pray, he will notice that Isa has descended. He will motion to Isa to pray. And then Isa is going to say, no. The Iqamah was given for you, you pray. And this is a sharaf, this is a way that the Ummah of Muhammad is dignified. That Isa ibn Maryam will come and pray behind one of us. Isn't it amazing? And Isa ibn Maryam is definitely better, more virtuous, and closer to Allah than the Mahdi. But it shows you, even that, Isa ibn Maryam is giving us the honor to lead him in prayer. One of us. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. So then, the gate, when the prayer is finished, Isa will say, open the gate. So when they open it, behind it the Dajjal will be with 70,000 Jews, each carrying an adorned sword and wearing a greenish cloak, as it is mentioned here. When the Dajjal looks at Isa, he will start to melt and dissolve. He will run away, trying to escape. Isa ibn Maryam will catch up to him at the gate of Lut, and he will kill the Dajjal. And when he kills the Dajjal, he will completely dissolve. And Isa ibn Maryam will show the spear with which he had killed the Dajjal to everybody. So everybody knows the Dajjal is done. No more Dajjal. And of course, nobody who supports the Dajjal will be able to escape. Nobody. His supporters and the people who believed in him will not be able to escape. The Muslims, whatsoever. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said they won't even be able to hide behind a tree or a rock, because the trees and the rocks will say, hey, come behind me. Have somebody hiding behind me. And they won't even be able to escape by hiding. So whatever goes on today in regards this battle between the forces of good and the forces of evil in the world, us against Satan and his forces. Right? We, as the Muslim Ummah, we are against Satan and his forces. Whatever happens in the next decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, 5, 10, 20, 30 decades, doesn't matter how long it takes. But there will be a day when Islam and Iman will be so appreciated that the disbelievers would wish they were believers. Simple as that. And those Muslims will be so dignified with La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah that they will defeat every enemy that they have and every foe. No problem. And they will be in the battle with Isa ibn Maryam, and they will destroy the greatest fitna that this world has ever seen. Be in no doubt about that. And perhaps we, with La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, because we wish we could at least support Isa ibn Maryam, maybe Allah will count us amongst them in regards to our niyyah, our intention. But while we are here, we got some work to do. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah must be understood by us, and we must help other people to understand it. So that if they accept it or reject it, then they accept it or reject it upon clarity and understanding, not upon confusion. Confusion is prevalent today about Islam and about many things. But we are here to help people, to help them understand La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. But we also have to clean up our homes. Our house is pretty messy. We of the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we have found somehow every reason to differ and disagree and dislike one another. But if the same Lord is going to hold me to account, if that's the same one that's going to hold you to account and the rest of the human beings and jinn kind, if he's going to hold us to account, then there's obviously something that we can all refer to settle our differences. So what should we refer to settle our differences and come together? That's right. The Book of Allah and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we must be prepared to give up our luggage and our baggage for that. If I'm right today about something and wrong about it tomorrow, and you show me, you say, let's follow Rasulullah. I say, let's follow Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I have to be ready. I have to be ready to give up any and all baggage. And every believer has to be ready. That what unites us and what makes us allies to one another is La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Not a subgroup or a subsect or a cult. Not a school of thought. Not a madhab. Not a skin color or dialect or culture. None of that unites us like La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah should. So if we return back to that, we'll be able to clean our houses. And when we invite the non-Muslims into our houses to see how great Islam is, they'll be amazed and stay. As opposed to being amazed for a bit and then leave because they see that we didn't have everything under control. Right? May Allah make it easy for us to understand. Any questions? Yes, sir.
You mentioned earlier that a group from Sahaba, they met the Dajjal somewhere on the
Yes,
island.
Tamim ad-Dari. He was a Christian at that time. When he came back to Rasulullah telling the story, he accepted Islam. Yes, sir.
There is any movement now or people trying to create where the Dajjal is?
As we said, Ibn Sa'id said that he knows exactly where the Dajjal was and where he was born. So there are people on this earth, possibly soothsayers and magicians and devil worshippers, who know where the Dajjal is. It's possible. And because Ibn Sayyad knew. So, I mean, all he did was worship the devil at first, initially, right? And of course, alhamdulillah, he came to Islam, but he still knew that knowledge. But he said, is there any group of people trying to find it? Yeah, even if they find it, he's not going to come out until it's time for him to come out.
Any idea which part of the world?
Rasulullah said he's in the east from Medina. So apparently, towards the Gulf of Iran. So in that area, in the east. So he told us that's where he is. I hope nobody plans to take a trip over there. I mean, I don't want to go. I don't want to see him. Whether he's changed or unchanged. Yes, sir.
Sorry, repeat that. You said that he was in the east?
Yeah, so Rasulullah said he's in the east. So our brother suggested the Gulf of Iran. That was east of Medina. So he's east or northeast of Medina. He's there now, yes.
The demise of Dajjal and the arrival of Isa, these are related, like the time-wise.
That's right.
So, what is the Christian perspective of this arrival of Dajjal and demise of Dajjal and arrival of Isa? Is there any resemblance between our belief system and Christian belief system?
That's a wonderful question. Is there any resemblance between us and the Christians in regards to the Dajjal and the Messiah? Yes. There is a lot of resemblance. The Jews do not believe that Jesus was the Messiah, period. The Christians believe he was the Messiah. But the thing is, the Christians believe he's God and the Son of God too, which we reject. So we're in the middle between both. We believe that he was a messenger sent by God, and that he's the Messiah, and that he's going to come back. Right? And the Jews don't believe anything like that about Jesus. So we are similar to the Christian in that, except they worship him as a God beside God. And we do not, and we reject that in totality. And the concept of their concept of the Antichrist, I have not studied it in detail. I'm not all sure about that. I know they have a concept of the Antichrist, but I don't know if it's in the detail that we have. I'm vaguely remembering some verses that were explained to me by a Christian. But Christians are different denominations, and they have different takes on these issues. But generally, they do believe in Antichrist, a figure actually coming, but it's not to the detail that we have, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained. And they do believe that Jesus will come and destroy him, Armageddon, and all of that stuff. It's very similar in that regard.
And in regards to Mahdi,
Yes.
is there any kind of similar figure in the religion?
In Christian religion, not that I've come across. I have not come across anything that resembles the Mahdi in the Christian faith.
Yeah, because I have been asked this question by Christians and I couldn't answer.
Yeah. So we'll research it together, inshallah, and then we'll provide the answer. May Allah bless you. Yes, sir.
As Muslims, we believe that, we cannot personify God or make an image for him.
Right.
So that's the belief of every Muslim. Everyone knows this.
Right.
So how can Muslims at the time of the Dajjal believe that he is God? And as an image, as he comes with one eye and, as a person.
Ignorance, brother. Our brother asked, how is it that people can believe, and Muslims believe generally, that you can't do this in regards to Allah. Allah is Allah, and you don't put an image that you can actually imagine on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because you can't imagine him. You can't even imagine what's in Jannah. So you can't imagine him now, but when you see him, and when you interact with him, you will know it's him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. For the Muslims at that time, and Muslims for the most part, we are ignorant about these realities. We have to study the attributes of Allah and the names of Allah and understand him for who He is. And a good way to understand Allah in the Quran is that when He ends the verse with Azizun Hakim, Shadidul Iqab, Azizun Alim, right? All of these names that He uses to describe Himself at the end of the verse, there's something in the verse that He is trying to prove with His names. So that it's like a stamp of what He just said. So you'll see the relationship between His names that He used at that end of the verse. It has a relationship with what He just said. So that you have to, and I have to, we got to go back to that Quran and start studying it and pondering it and looking over it and looking over it again. As we understand that, we'll be protected from the Dajjal. But the people will be misguided, they will be ignorant and therefore easily misled by the Dajjal. Yes, sir.
So I just want to clear one confusion. At the beginning you mentioned that there will be 4 major signs of the arrival of Dajjal. There will be fewer Arabs, Jerusalem will be in Paris, Medina will be in ruins, and Istanbul will be conquered. But during the speech you mentioned that 2 cities will be protected, Mecca and Medina.
Yes. So what does it mean, the parish of Mecca, the parish of Medina in ruins? In ruins of Medina, it may be, I've heard it explained like this, بِقِلَّةْ عَدَدْ سُكَّانِهَا, that the people who live there will be very few, especially in comparison to Jerusalem itself. Rasulullah said that it will be populated. Jerusalem will be populated, Bayt al-Maqdis will be populated. And on the opposite of that, Medina will be few in its visitors and its inhabitants. So that's the ruin of it. And it doesn't mean that the buildings are falling apart, type of ruin, but it means that people are not visiting it as frequently. And in fact, in another hadith, he said that a dog will come by and urinate in the masjid on one of its pillars and no one will be there to even care for it. That's how least frequented it will be, less frequented. No. Yes, sir.
So you talked about the soothsayer, how he knew about the Dajjal, and
Yes.
he practiced black magic. You mentioned white magic. What is that?
White magic is apparently some type of positive magic, where you're using magic to do good things as opposed to using magic to do evil things. Because usually magic is used to do evil things. So a person says, I'm going to do magic to bring them two together because they're arguing and fighting over something. I'll use magic to ask the jinni to bring their hearts together. That's haram. Can't use even magic to do good things. You can only use your belief in Allah and your dua and follow Rasulullah, and that will make good things happen. You don't need magic for that. You know what I'm saying? May Allah bless you all. Sisters, I apologize, I didn't give you a chance. Please ask a question if you have. Yes, this will be our last question, inshallah.
You mentioned more than one type of fitna. Did you give those types of fitna? The loss of family for one, and the other one for online.
I'm sorry, the last part of your question?
You said there was
Yes.
Can you give the names of those?
So those fitan, inshallah, we can meet after prayer. I can show you this, and then you can see the details of that, inshallah. That way you can, inshallah, restore your notes to this base. Is that okay? Okay, inshallah. May Allah bless you all. May Allah Jalla ala help us to understand. May Allah Jalla ala bless us in this La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Bring us together, unite our hearts upon it, make our actions to fall in line with it. Help us to support this statement until the day that we pass. And we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resurrect us upon La ilaha illallah, and then He causes us to pass upon La ilaha illallah. And anything that I've said that was correct, then it is from Allah, not from me. However, anything that I've said that is incorrect, then that is from me. I apologize for that, and from shaitan. Sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa alihi. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.